nothing wrong with your iPhone. You're in the right place. This is the Love, Happiness, and Success podcast, and I'm Dr. Lisa Marie Bobby, and I'm playing scary music for all of you whose relationships feel kind of scary right now, because you know what? It's January, and this is what happens to relationships in January. That's what we're going to be talking about today on the Love, Happiness, and Success podcast. So stay tuned. Okay, and that lovely number, in case anyone is interested, is R. Stevie Moore from his album Tra La La Fooey, which I found hilarious. Anyway, so before we jump into our topic today of what is going on with this January relationship crisis experience, let me just say hi. If this is your first time listening to the Love, Happiness, and Success podcast, and we haven't met yet, I haven't introduced myself in a while, so I figured I would today. I'm Dr. Lisa Marie Bobby, and I am a marriage counselor and a therapist and a life coach. I have a practice in Denver, but I decided to start doing this podcast just to put some helpful information out into the world in hopes that it would be of service to more than the handful of people I can meet with personally every week. So that's what I'm doing here. If you would like more ways to create more love, happiness, and success in your life, you might also want to check out my blog. You can find it on my website, www.growingself.com. While you're there, do not forget to check out my free online happiness class. You can sign up and learn a technique that you can start using right away that will help you feel happier. So be sure to check that out. Another couple announcements. I am going to be at the live event on January 21st, the Great Love Debate in Denver. It's going to be a great time. And so they get a room full of 200 single people, 100 men, 100 women, and they all come together with a panel of experts, myself included, to talk about what is the problem and what goes on, and it creates challenges for single people to connect with each other. And then there's a super fun mix and mingle party after the event. So if you've been staring at somebody across the room all night, you'll have an opportunity to maybe try out some of the tips that you've heard myself and other experts sharing. So check it out if you want to go. Again, Great Love Debate. The website is www.greatlovedebate.com, and you can buy your tickets there. And I hope you come. And if you do, be sure to say hi to me in person. I'd love to see you. And I'm going to stick around for the meet and greet after the talk. So we'll be there. And also, I am so excited to announce that we are going to be doing a premarital counseling class. So if this new relationship thing is behind you and you are jumping into the marital pool, and you want to do a really good premarital counseling class, a wonderful therapist in my practice, Megan Terry, is going to be facilitating this class. And it starts on Monday, February the 9th, and it's going to be every Monday in Denver, starting at 5 p.m., and it goes for 6 weeks. And during those 6 weeks, she's going to help you guys learn how to create a lifetime of love. So how to talk to each other, how to keep your relationship alive over the long haul, how to deal with inevitable marital conflict. It happens. How to deal with it productively, and also how to deal with the big five. So money, sex, household stuff, religion, and kids, and try to create agreements in advance before the two of you guys get married so that your relationship will be protected from some of the stress that you may incur otherwise down the road if you don't hash some of this stuff out beforehand. So if you're interested in that, again, come back to our website, growingself.com, and learn all about it. So there's that. All kinds of fun relationship stuff going on this month. But let's talk about your relationship and what is going on with relationships in January. You know, it's so funny. We have premarital stuff, we have dating stuff, but the reality is that a lot of established relationships struggle in particularly January and February, a couple of months right after the holidays. It can almost feel like people have to recover and rebuild their relationships a little bit right after the holidays. And so, there are our phones start ringing off the hook at this time of year, and so many people are looking to get into marriage counseling right now. And I figured I would make this podcast just for you if you're experiencing this January relationship crisis phenomena. So I want to talk a little bit about what's going on, but also give you some ideas for how to fix it. Because I think that being able to put things into context and be like, oh, okay, this is what's happening. It helps you not freak out is the word that's coming into my mind, probably not the clinical term, but get so upset, and be able to kind of step back a little bit. Because I think that sometimes when people feel like their wheels are starting to come off their relationship a little bit, they get scared, and they can start to think bad things like, what does this mean? Does this mean we should break up? And quite frankly, there's a big spike in the number of couples that separate and a number of couples that divorce in January. So that's why I wanted to make this podcast for you today, so that you can understand what's going on, maybe not get so scared if it is going on in your relationship, and just have some more information so that you can take some time, figure out what's happening, and make a considered decision, as opposed to doing anything rash that, I don't know, you might regret a few months from now when things sort of settle back down again. So that is my purpose for talking to you about this subject today. So let's jump in. And first of all, I want to give you some information about why this time of year is particularly hard for couples. So just to kind of normalize this experience and hopefully keep you from getting scared and really worried about what's happening right now, because this is a normal thing. And the first thing that you need to be aware of is that holidays can be very, very hard on a marriage. And I know that we think about holidays as being so fun, and there are so many fun things that come along with holidays and presents and stuff. But holidays put an amazing amount of stress on a relationship. And why? Is because there are just so many things to fight about over the holidays. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that creates conflict with people. There are just so many opportunities to be grumpy with each other over the holidays. I mean, everything from the stress of traveling, which can be a big fight trigger for some couples, people, being anxious and tense about getting on planes and getting places on times, and it's all jangling to begin with. But then that, elevated mood state, it's easy to get snappy with each other. And sometimes it's hard to repair that, especially if somebody goes to this place of, how could you treat me like this over the holidays? What might be a fairly, small kerfluffle in June, it turns into this big dramatic thing in December, because there's a lot of meaning attached to the holidays and what it should be like. And so if people are getting grumpy and irritable with each other, little fights get a lot bigger. But there's so many more reasons. I mean, just literally the fodder that a couple has to fight about is enormous in December and November, December, because traveling home to be with family for the holidays and what those dynamics are like. It's so common for couples to be triggered by things related to a family of origin, right? And so the most typical scenario we hear about in the marriage counseling sessions that we have after the holidays is often how upset one partner is because the other partner, their spouse, either didn't set appropriate boundaries with one of their parents during the holidays, or one person was getting kind of vibed by somebody's mother, and that wasn't, boundaries weren't being set, or grandma was parenting the kids and you allowed that to happen and you should have stepped in, or those dynamics can just create so many hurt feelings, and adding to how difficult family of origin dynamics are for most couples to deal with anyway. Again, when you throw that layer of, but we're supposed to be having fun, we're supposed to be having this great family experience, those expectations on top of difficult, stressful, emotionally challenging moments can make it even harder. So all the time this stuff happens. So a wife is upset that his mother is feeding the kids junk food and undermining her authority, and not stepping up to defend her family, and the husband thinks the wife is making it into a big deal because he's used to his mom and what she does. And I can't even tell you how many times I've heard that story. And there can be so many variations. You throw in a sister, some cousins, and couples can get well into February before they start to smooth out the hard feelings that were created by some of these family, extended family experiences. And I mean, some couples, it goes so long, it takes a really awesome Valentine's Day to repair the damage done to a marriage at family gatherings over the Thanksgiving and Christmas holidays. And I certainly hope that isn't the case with you. We'll be talking about how to repair some of it. But that's just one thing that couples can fight over, and that's a big deal in and of itself. But in addition to travel, in addition to family, money can be a huge issue for couples over the holidays. I was actually at a Toys R Us before Christmas. My husband and I went, spending an outrageous amount of money ourselves on Minecraft paraphernalia. So the kid is now 6, and I don't know if you know Minecraft, but anyway, I could spend this whole podcast in my own outrage about Minecraft. And so there's these little styrofoam swords. They're bendy styrofoam swords. $20 for this special diamond Minecraft sword. But my kid was so happy about it, so it was worth it. But anyway, so when we were spending all this money for a fake foam rubber diamond sword, we passed by this woman who had this toys, just the shopping cart stuffed with toys, overflowing. And we walked past her. It looked like an older woman. She might have been with her adult daughter, but she turned to the daughter and she said, "Your dad is going to have a cow over this, but I don't care." And I hate it that I was being a little bit judgy, but I was at that moment. But I thought, okay, lady, good luck with that. And it's just like coming into Christmas, I mean, intentionally overspending and spending in a way that your partner is not cool with, but you're doing it anyway. And it can get really bad, on both sides of it. People hide how much they're spending. I've talked to people who open credit account that's the other person doesn't even know about. Or, some person doesn't like to open up the wallet on Christmas time and thinks that the kids should be happy with some pipe cleaners and a bag of marbles because that's what they got for Christmas when they were a kid, and so it just turns into this big power struggle around, what Christmas should be like, and centers on money. And the fights around this can be vicious, and there's money, and then there's what kind of presents the kids should get. It can be really exhausting. So a lot there. And then, let's not discount how much there is to fight about when people are disappointed in the gifts that they get from their partners. So for some couples, gift giving can be a really big deal. And it can go a couple of different ways. I mean, some couples, it's like boring in a way that everybody knows what they're going to get each other. They talk about it beforehand. There's no drama, there's no romance, there's no mystery. And then people feel sad about that because it feels like, yes, they got what they wanted, but you didn't put any thought into it. And so then that makes me feel bad. Or, there are just so many ways to mess up gift giving in a romantic relationship that it's easy to create hurt feelings. Because even if somebody gives a nice present, it's not what I really wanted. And so the meaning that I'm going to take from that is that you don't really understand me. We're really disconnected. How could you not know me after all this time? And so that can cause a lot of hurt feelings. Or other times, it is a nice gift. It is something that somebody wanted, but how could you have spent that much money? And that turns into a fight. Can turn into bad feelings around breaking the budget and being irresponsible. And then that causes all kinds of hurt feelings in the other direction, especially for the giver who is really trying to do something nice. So there's a lot there. And then, most of the time, 364 days a year, people who have different religious beliefs can coexist in harmony. But all of a sudden, Christmas Eve or Hanukkah rolls around and it's like Belfast in 1974. You know what I mean? The Catholics and Protestants are at each other's throats, and people, it goes back to these ideas about what things are supposed to be like. And all of a sudden, whether or not we're going to church with the kids and which church we're going to, and is it okay to wear jeans or not, it becomes such a big deal because I think that we modern folk try to think that we're not as attached to our traditions as we probably are. Most of the time we can get away with stuff, but there's something about the holidays that just triggers and pulls up all of this stuff. We're trying to create memories. We're trying to have it be special. We're trying to have it be meaningful and important. And over the course of these, of the month between Thanksgiving and Christmas, there can just be so much stuff. And then you add to that the amount of time and stress and running around and craziness and zaniness and people drinking too much. Yes, I said it out loud. People go to parties, they have 4 glasses of wine instead of their usual 1 glass of wine, and all of a sudden, what would have been a, maybe intense conversation on the way home in the car turns into some crap show screaming match where people are threatening to jump out. I mean, it can get really bad when you throw a little bit of booze into the mix. So, for all of these reasons, the holidays can be very difficult on a marriage. But here's the even scarier thing. And I'm not saying this to scare you on purpose. I'm just telling you that when people do split up, finally, it's most likely to happen in January. And there are many reasons for this. Some people haven't been in a good place for a long time, but they don't want to blow up the farm right before the holidays and, ruin the kids' Christmas for the rest of their life because on Christmas Eve in 2014, my parents divorced. So some people do wait until after the holidays to drop the bomb. But another reason is the new year coming and New Year's resolutions, and it's an introspective time for people. They can do a lot of thinking about, okay, how's my life going? Am I happy with this? Or are there some things that I would really like to change? Because the holidays can for sure bring out the worst in a married couple. And fighting because of that can become so very frequent and intense for the weeks leading up to the holiday. And then by the time people roll around to New Year's Eve and they start thinking about, okay, am I happy with my life? What kinds of things do I want to be different for this next year? People are thinking about the state of their relationship and the quality of their marriage. People think about what they did this past year, how it's been going for them. And here's an important psychological principle. If you are primed to feel a certain emotion, you are more likely to remember things that you associate with that emotion. So, if you are currently feeling all agitated and upset and unloved because of all the fights that you've been having with your partner over December, and then you get to December 31st or a couple days after New Year's, you are more likely to be thinking about all the yucky fights you've had all year, when in reality, you might only be having one, significant fight every month or two, but it's still, you're going to think about those more, and that's what you're going to remember, as opposed to all the times over the past year when it was either neutral or it was good. So all of those reasons, they all add up together and they conspire to people really getting stressed out and worried about their relationship in January. And sometimes, people go to this place where they say, I am done. This year, looking back on it through the lens of December, I'm primed to have all these feelings. When I look back on it, this year was terrible. And when I really think about it, the last 3 years have been terrible because I'm primed to think about every fight we've had since 2007 or whatever. And at those moments, it can feel so overwhelming that people say, you know what? That's it. It's a new year. It's a fresh start. I'm done. And so people go there. They get separated. They start calling lawyers and they start having very serious and intense conversations. And they start calling marriage counselors too. And just to say, if you go the marriage counselor route, there's hope. I mean, by the time people start lawyering up, when you introduce lawyers into a conflict, a marital conflict, it gets so yucky so fast. So, but there is an opportunity here to be able to talk about things that, yeah, maybe you should have been talking about. And maybe the holidays did show you the cracks, the fissures in your relationship, the stuff where you do have to work a little bit harder. Maybe there is unfinished business about, the mother-in-law and how you guys as a couple are going to handle that. And you do need to have these conversations about that before Christmas 2015 rolls around again. But there's hope. If you can come and talk about it, it can turn into something productive. It can turn into a growth moment for your relationship, as opposed to, the funeral dirge, the end of your relationship. So here are some tips to think about. One is, consider this to be a opportunity for growth. So your wife just told you that she wanted a divorce. Let's everybody slow down for a minute and just think, is there stuff that we can work on? So three important points here. First of all, do not forget about the context. If somebody is saying something very dramatic and saying this is the worst relationship in the world and I want to be out of it right now, don't forget the context about the time of year this is. As we have just discussed, the holidays are an unusually stressful time. And if you think about it rationally, as I was going over all this stuff, I know that you were probably nodding your head and thinking, yeah, you know what? This time of year, there really is more stuff to fight about than there usually is. So don't just take what's been happening over this last month or so as an indication of the global quality of your entire marriage. This time of year is a rough patch for many couples, and so I would just encourage you to not draw any conclusions based on the last 6 weeks. Let things cool down for a little while, get into marriage counseling, talk about it, figure out what are solvable problems, what stuff do you have to work on, but give yourself a little bit of time just to recover from this unusually stressful life space before you make any major life decisions, because once you pull the trigger on some of this stuff, you really can't go back. So make sure that you're not having a reaction to this stress, this contextual stress. Okay, that's tip number 1. Tip number 2, if this has been difficult for you guys lately, I want you to instantly, right this very second, your number 1 priority is to stop defending yourself and stop trying to explain to your person why you are in fact right. Just stop it. Stop it right now and put all of your energy into listening to what they are saying. Just listen. The extent to which you listen is the extent to which you will eventually be listened to. And if you just stop talking, even just 15 minutes, and let your wife talk or let your husband talk and make it your number 1 priority to really try and hear what they are saying. You don't have to agree with it, but hear what they are telling you about their feelings. They're telling you about their feelings. Just listen to it. Try some reflective statements. I hear that you're saying that when my mom did this and I didn't, set any boundaries with her, that it really, really hurt your feelings. And they'll say, yeah, it really did. And, we'll go on and tell you more about their injuries. But in that moment, there is hope for your relationship, because in that moment, they feel heard by you. And honestly, when people feel heard, fighting stops and it turns into a conversation. So invest 15 minutes in just listening and not being defensive. Okay? And own up to your own part of the problem. Don't focus on what your partner was doing or not doing that made you react to them. Just focus on and make amends for your part in the conflict. And then once you can say, you know what, I didn't stop my mom from feeding the kids Cheese Whiz and Ritz crackers and Diet Cokes at 11 o'clock at night. I didn't. You're right. You are right. Make amends and then follow that up with some action. So you can't just say you're sorry. You can't just say, yes, I understand how you feel now. You have to show your partner that you're hearing them and that you care. And because you could say, you know what, I'm going to send my mom an email and let her know that when we go on Easter, that we are going to be really focusing on healthy snacks for the family. Or you could go to the grocery store and you could buy a bag of baby carrots and put them in the refrigerator and say, you know what, I was really hearing you when you were talking about how upset you were about, the junk food and my mom. And so I got these carrots because I wanted you to know how serious I am about changing this in the future. Follow it up with a behavior, because apologies do not repair trust after a conflict, but following through is what rebuilds trust after a conflict. So again, if you did spend kind of a lot of money, listen to what your partner is saying and say, you know what, we do need to get back on the same page about this. Let's do a budget together, and I'll stick to it and you'll stick to it. Look for solutions. That will go so far in calming this back down and helping people feel like there is hope to save the relationship. And then lastly, and number 3, and I so hope this doesn't happen to you, but it does happen, especially in January, if your partner announces that they want a divorce or a separation right around now, and if you want to stay married, do not freak out, do not argue with them, just ask for some more time. A nice, reasonable time frame is 3 months. Just say, you know what, we've been together all this time. I hear what you're saying. I understand this is hard. I understand you're serious. Can you please just give us 3 months to see if we can work through some of this stuff? I'm committed to making changes. I love you. I want to be with you. 3 months, and see what they say. And don't just not do anything for 3 months. Get into some intensive, high quality, and when I say intensive, I mean like twice a week, marriage counseling with somebody who knows what they're doing. So don't just go to a regular therapist. Go to a licensed marriage and family therapist, or somebody who has very specialized training and experience just in marriage and family therapy, because a lot of individual therapists, they can see couples, but they don't have any special training and experience in couples. And so a lot of times when couples go to individual therapists, even a psychologist, even if they have a doctor in front of their name, it does not mean that they know anything specifically about marriage and family therapy. And if they don't, it can make it worse instead of better. And then what happens is that you go to marriage counseling and you guys say, well, that didn't do anything, so therefore our relationship is not salvageable. When in fact, if you had gone to a marriage counselor who had a different kind of experience, a different kind of training, that you would have had a productive experience. So don't give up, and don't settle for an individual therapist as a marriage counselor, and do not go to one of your individual therapists for marriage counseling. Go to somebody completely different whose only responsibility is to your relationship. Because if you go to an individual, like if your wife has been seeing an individual therapist and then you start going with her for couples counseling, that therapist probably has many preconceived ideas about you, and it will not go well. Not nearly as well as if you go to an unbiased third party. But make sure that you check out credentials, ask about education, and ask about their experience with couples counseling in particular, in order to have the most successful experience. Because really, going for marriage counseling in a crisis really can make the difference between staying together or getting divorced. And, if you've been in marriage counseling when this kind of declaration comes out on New Year's, we need to get divorced, find a different marriage counselor because they're not all the same. So anyway, and I know that this sounds like a big commercial for marriage counseling. There are a lot of things that people can work through on their own. And if you use the first couple of tips that I gave you about remembering the context and also using some of those basic communication skills, that's going to carry you a long way. And for a lot of people, that can really mend a relationship, is when you remember the context, remember the good parts of your relationship too, slow down and really focus on listening and not being defensive and trying to show people your good intentions. A lot of relationship problems really can be repaired when people just commit to behaving with love. However, if somebody is throwing that D word around, get to a good marriage counselor, because, it would be a tragic thing, I think, in my opinion, to trash a marriage and throw it away at this time of year and without having tried high quality marriage counseling. So that's my 2 cents, because all relationships have up and downs, you know. And the truth is that a lot of couples, I think most couples, gosh, my own marriage included, you know, going through those ups and those downs and then coming out the other side of those rough patches, that's what really makes a relationship strong. Those difficult times are when you learn the most about yourselves and about each other. So have hope, and it can get a lot better. All right, so that is it for today. Good luck, everybody, and I will be back in touch with more hopefully helpful advice for you next week. Take care.